All right, we have lesson 9. Please stay tuned till the end for the quiz code. All right, so first we're going to start talking about percents in real life. Where do we see them? Probably the most common place we're going to see tax in real life in percents is sales tax. So this is money that's charged after you buy an item. So it's like if you buy an item that is $4.99, usually it's a little bit more than that, and that's because of sales tax. Tips are gratuities. So if you go to get a haircut, or if you go out to dinner, you have to tip your waitress or your waiter. This is money that you give after someone does a service for you. Next is commission. So this is like car salesmen or real estate agents. So when you go buy a car, the price of your car, that salesman gets a percentage of the price that you pay for your car as his income. So that's what he gets for a living. And the last part is probably most common discount. So if you go to a store and something says 20% off or 30% off, that would be discounts. That's money that's taken off of any price that you buy of any item. All right, next we're going to start talking about converting decimals to percents and percents to decimals. So when you are given a decimal like we have here, you need to move it 2 times to the left. Okay, so to take any decimal and make it a percent, we're going to take our decimal and move it 2 times. So that would mean this would be 75%. Take it, move it 2 times, 2. So this would be 5%. 2. This would be 36.9%. 2. So now if you notice here, my decimal's here, but I have an empty spot here. So I'm going to put a 0 for a placeholder, which means this last one is actually 120%. Okay, so let me kind of explain what's happening here a little bit in more detail. When I moved this decimal 2 times, my decimal is now at the end, which means my new number is 75 with the decimal at the end, which is how I get this 75%. Going backwards, right? Anytime you have a whole number, you have an invisible decimal at the end of it. So I'm going to move it 2 times to the right. So 2. So this would be 0.65. 2. I'm going to put a 0 for my placeholder, 0.08. 2. 0.944. 2. This would be 1.5. Actually, I think I have these mixed up, sorry. This should be to the right, and then this one should be to the left. So sorry. Alright, so when you are setting up any percent problems, you're going to use the equation part over whole equals percent over 100. So like when I say percent right here, I mean like if you have a problem that says something like 20% off, 20 is what you would put here for your percent. Okay, but I would 10 out of 10 recommend pausing, writing this down somewhere so that you have it to reference when you are going back to solve any percent problems in the next upcoming workbooks. Here's our first problem. So Carla used 15% of her 240 songs for her study music playlist. How many songs did Carla have? Remember, we have part over whole equals your percent over 100. So 15 is my percent. Okay, so I'm going to put 15 over 100. 240, so that's her total number of songs, right? Whole is another way of saying your total. Now your whole should always be bigger than your part. Okay, whole should always be bigger than your part. So 240 is going to go on the bottom, and I don't know what my part is. My part is how many songs, so I'm going to put an X here. Now, the next thing we're going to do is some cross multiplying. Okay, and when I say cross multiplying, it's quite literal. So we're going to multiply diagonally and diagonally again. I'm going to make this one a separate color. So I'm going to have 240 times 15, and my equal sign goes in between them, and then I'm going to do my other side, 100 times x. Now I do 100 times x, that is just 100, x written like that. Okay, so the first thing we need to do is our multiplication. So 240 times 15. Let's figure out what number that is. So let's pull up over our calculator. So 240 times 15. Whoops. Gives me 3,600. So 3,600, and that is equal to 100x. Now to get x by itself, the opposite of multiplying by 100 is dividing by 100. We're going to divide both sides by 100. That's going to cancel. These two zeros will cancel, which means 36 is equal to x, which means that Carla uses a total of 36 songs on her playlist. Okay, so 36 songs on her playlist. Next question. In a class of 50 students, 56% are female. How many female students are in the class? Okay, so again, part over whole is going to equal my percent over 100. So there's a total of 50 students in the class, so that is my whole. 56 is my percent over 100, and then I have x here. Now on this one, there's a little bit of an easier way to do this one. If I'm going from 100 to 50, right, I could divide 100 by 2, and it will give me 50. So I'm going to do the same thing up top. 56, I'm going to divide it by 2. When I do 56 divided by 2, if you don't know, remember you can always use a calculator to double check. 56 divided by 2 gives me 28, which means that 28 students are female. 28 students are female. Next one, a $200 telescope is on sale for 30% off. How much money is taken off of the telescope? Again, we're going to do part over whole, which is going to equal percent over 100. So $200 is the total price of the telescope, right? That's the whole price. 200 is going to go on bottom. 30% off, so I'm going to have 30 over 100. I'm going to put x up here. Now, this, if I go from 100 to 200, right, I can multiply by 2. 100 times 2 gives me 200, which means I can do the same thing up top. 30 times 2 is 60, which means that the telescope is $60 off. That's how much money is taken off of the telescope. All right. The health department records show that 49 citizens in a town of 550 were diagnosed with the flu during the month of March. What percentage of people had the flu? This one's a little bit different because now we're going backwards, but we're still going to use the same equation. So I'm still going to do part over whole, and that's going to equal my percent over 100. Remember that your whole should always be bigger, right? That's your total. That should always be bigger than a part. So 49 and 550. 49 citizens had the flu out of a total of 550. I don't know what my percentage is, and it's going to be over 100. So for this problem here, I am going to use that cross multiplication just because our numbers are not as easy. So I'm going to multiply diagonally first. So I'm going to have 49 times 100, and that's going to equal 550 times x. And x. All right, so 49 times 100 is 4,900. That is equal to 550x. To get x by itself, to undo this multiplication, I need to do division. I'm trying to get rid of that 550, so I'm going to divide by 550. This will cancel, and then I'm going to bring over my calculator to do this division. So 4,900 divided by 550 tells me 8.9. So 8.9 is equal to x, which means approximately 8.9% of people had the flu in March. Alright, the results of a lab experiment show that only 15 test subjects yielded positive results, which is 20% of T, the total test subjects. How many total subjects were tested? Notice how this question asks how many total subjects were tested, right? So I don't know what my total is, which tells me that I should be solving for my whole. So I'm going to put this down here. And only 15 yielded a positive result. So 15 were positive, and that was 20% of everyone. Okay, so I'm going to do my cross multiplication. So 15 times 100 is equal to 20 times x. 15 times 100 is 1500, which equals 20. We're going to divide both sides by 20. And when we do that, we get 75. So 75, whoops, 75 total subjects were tested. 75 total subjects were tested. Alrighty, a lawyer wins 75% of her closed cases. So she wins 75% of her closed cases. So far this year, she's won 9 cases. How many cases did she close so far this year? Okay, so she wins 75% of her closed cases, right? And she's won 9. So, oops, she's won 9. X on the bottom. 75 over 100. Do our cross multiplication. 900 equals 75x. Divide by 75. We have 900 divided by 75, which tells me 12. Okay. So, sorry. So that means that she, out of 12 total cases, she has won 9, right? So she has closed a total of 12 cases. All right. The next part, I would pause this, write this down, take a picture of it. Make sure you have this somewhere because that will make answering these questions much easier. These questions that you're going to see are similar to ones that you'll see on your checkpoint for this lesson. So you're going to see questions like this. What is 35% of 100? Right? Now, this chart tells you what each of these words means, so you could write an equation from this sentence. Notice how what is a variable, so anytime I see what, I'm writing a variable. So what? X. Is my equal sign, right? So in place of is, I'm writing an equal sign. Here I have a percent. It tells me to change my percent to a decimal. So again, I'm moving it 2 places. So I have 0.35. Of is multiply, so I'm multiplying by 100. Okay, so numbers stay the same numbers unless it's a percent, changes to a decimal. So now you can see here x is just equal to 0.35 times 100. So all I have to do is multiply those. 0.35 times 100, which is 35. So x is 35. So 35 is 35% of 100. Here's another one. What is 12% of 72? So what is a variable? So I have x. Is my equal sign. 12% as a decimal, 0.12. Of is telling me to multiply, and then 72 I'm just going to leave as a number. So I have 0.12 times 72, which tells me that it is 8.64. So 8.64 is 12% of 72. 8.64. Alright, so now we have what, so that's my x, percent of 50 is 35. So of is multiplication. I have, whoops, 50 is equal 35. So I'm going to kind of bring this closer together. When it says what percent, that is 1 unit. Okay, that's one piece. So x is going to tell me my percent. So I have x times 50 equals 35. So now here, to get rid of this times 50, we need to do the opposite, which is dividing by 50 on both sides. Okay, and you have x is equal to, let's figure out what that division will give us. I have 35 divided by 50, 0.7. So it tells me this is 0.7. Now, this is a decimal, right? Not a percent. So remember, you have to move your decimal 2 places. So it's actually 70%. Don't forget to move your decimal. That's the biggest mistake I see most students make. This one's a little bit more complicated, but you just got to think of it kind of as 2 separate questions. Take it one step at a time, okay? It says, if 45% of a number is 54, what is 65% of the number? So the first thing we need to figure out here is, well, what is this mysterious number that this question is talking about? So if 45%, so I have 0.45, of is multiplication, a number. I don't know what this number is, so I'm going to put an x here. Is equal, and I have 54. So that's it. I'm just going to solve this first part of my problem. Okay, this last part I'm not dealing with yet. So like that last problem, to get rid of this multiplication, I need to do division. And I'm trying to get rid of 0.45, so I'm going to divide by 0.45. Those are going to go away, and I'm left with x is equal to, bring back our calculator. I have 54 divided by 0.45. And it tells me it is 120. So that mysterious number is 120. Now that I know what that number is, instead of the number, I'm going to replace this with 120. So now my question that I'm answering here is, what is 65% of 120? So what is x? Is equal 65% changed to a decimal of multiplication and 120. So all I need to do is take that 60.65 and multiply it by 120. 0.65 times 120, which tells me it is 78. So 78 is my final answer here. 78 is 65% of 120. So that is all the examples that I have. The quiz code is waffle with a lowercase for every single letter. There's no uppercase. If you have questions or need some extra help, don't forget I have my open sessions Monday through Thursday from 11 to 1. Okay, check the announcements and the agendas that I send out to see if I have any accommodations, like a different time for those. But other than that, please let me know if you need help with anything, and I hope you have a wonderful rest of your day, and good luck on your quiz.